Hey, Nico hier en goedemorgen. Vandaag ergens toch wel een ander soort video. Een video die eigenlijk meer gaat over mindset. Mindset is een heel belangrijk keypoint, vind ik dan, om de stap naar financiële onafhankelijkheid te zetten. We zijn allemaal opgegroeid in een systeem. We zijn allemaal opgegroeid en we zijn naar school gegaan en we hebben ons ergens in een richting geduwd, in een vak. We zijn een vak gaan leren, we hebben een algemene ontwikkeling gekregen. Maar één ding is daar absoluut, ontbreekt daar eigenlijk in die opleiding of in die ontwikkeling. Toch vervelen en toch zeker gelijk in het schoolsysteem of zelfs verder, hogeschool, universiteit. Dat is vooral hoe ga ik om met geld. Wat is geld? Hoe ga ik om met geld? En hoe zit eigenlijk ons systeem in elkaar? Doordat mensen, iedereen spreekt wel eens van ratrace. En dat is het ook. Hè. Kijk uw stramien, kijk de structuur dat heel veel mensen hebben, elke dag opnieuw. Iedereen gaat werken, het gros gaat werken en maandag tot vrijdag. We zitten in dat systeem, je staat 's morgens op, kinderen gaan naar school, jij gaat naar je werk, je komt thuis en dat herhaalt zich. Zolang als je die cirkel niet kunt doorbreken of in je hoofd niet op de juiste richting of niet in de juiste koers zit, ga dat dan nooit doorbreken. En deze video gaat u helpen om daar een heel ander inzicht op te krijgen. Het boek van Robert Kiyosaki is één boek, je hebt er meerdere. Je hebt tegenwoordig veel, je hebt heel veel boeken, je hebt podcasts, je hebt audibles. Maar leren er ook uit en leer zeker investeren in je eigen ontwikkeling, in je eigen denken, doen. Stop niet met leren. Leer anders denken. En laat dingen zoals de samenvatting van dit boek u daar absoluut in helpen. Dat is mijn bedoeling.
3,276,948. At the time of this recording, that is how many years Elon Musk, the founder of SpaceX and Tesla, could survive into the future if he were to spend the average American salary of $56,516 per year. Put another way, even if you were able to save an unrealistic 50% of your salary and stash it under the mattress every year, it would take you 6.5 million years to save your way to Elon's wealth. Okay, I get it. So we can't all be the richest people on the planet. But how about $1 million? Surely that couldn't be that hard, right? Well, let's say you're the average engineer earning $80,000 per year. It would take 16 years just to earn $1 million. But that doesn't include rent, food, cost of living. And if you diligently and consistently save 10% of your earnings, it would take 156 years to save your way to $1 million. The average teacher? 217 years. A bartender? 625 years. You see, for the rich, wealth is measured in time. If you lost your job tomorrow, how many days, months, or years could you survive on your savings? That is the definition of wealth. So how long could you survive? This book will give you the financial intelligence that you probably missed out on growing up. The secret financial intelligence that wealthy families pass on from generation to generation. The education system and your parents forgot to teach you. Not getting this information is why so many people remain forever stuck in the rat race. By the end of this video, you will know 95% of everything this book has to offer. You will have a bird's eye view of all the most important concepts and quotes that will change your perception of wealth and guide you on your journey to financial freedom. Let's jump into it. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The story of two fathers. One has a wall full of degrees and diplomas. One, a high school dropout. One, after death, will leave next to nothing behind except debt. The other will have died one of the richest men in Hawaii and will pass on his empire to his children. Rich Dad guides two boys on a journey to best use their minds and finite time to create wealth through investments and business. This story shows the difference between I can't afford that to how can I afford that? His poor dad would say things like, I'll never be rich, and his prophecies became true. His rich dad, however, even after going bankrupt and having $0, would say, "I'm a rich man." There's a difference between being poor and being broke. Broke is temporary, poor is eternal. Lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. When Robert Kiyosaki, the author of this book, was 9 years old, his best friend Mike and he asked Rich Dad, Mike's father, how to make money. Before long, they were both working within Rich Dad's companies. The only problem Robert had was his salary. 10 cents a week. A poverty wage. He seriously thought about quitting every week that passed by. Who was this guy to be exploiting us for 10 cents a week, he would ask himself. It was at this moment in time that Rich Dad gave them their first lesson on the topic of money. Life pushes all of us around. Some people give up and others fight. Few learn the lesson and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. Most people leave their jobs because they aren't receiving enough money. They would have already quit. But the wealthy see it as an opportunity to learn. One of life's biggest traps. They work very hard for little money, clinging to the illusion of job security, 3 weeks vacation, and a skimpy pension. People's lives are forever controlled by two emotions, fear and greed. Here's how the pattern goes. Your fear of not having money motivates you to work harder. Then the paychecks begin, and your desire and greed for new cars, new products, new shoes and clothes begins. You want more things, so you work harder for that promotion. Then the pattern is set, and you're stuck in it. You get up, you go to work, you come home and you pay your bills. Your increased earning leads to increased spending, and this is the rat race. To break the boys out of the 9-to-5 mentality driven by fear and greed, eventually Rich Dad cut down the two boys' wages to 0. Robert didn't dare tell his poor dad that he was working for nothing.
What's the matter with you?
They began working solely for the knowledge, and Rich Dad forced them to think of ways to start generating their own income.
Where was I?
One day, 2 older comics were left lying around one of Rich Dad's stores, and this was the inspiration for them to open their first business. They recovered the outdated comics, opened a library in their basement, classmates paid 10 cents for entry, they paid the sister a wage of $1 a week, and before they knew it, they were earning $9.50 a week without even needing to work. This was the beginning of their journey of not working to earn money, but making money work for them. Key lesson. Getting a job is really just a short-term solution, getting enough to pay expenses, to the long-term challenge of building your net worth. The more you get paid, the higher your expenses become. This is human nature, and it's driven by fear and desire. Once you get stuck in this cycle, you are forced to work for someone else the rest of your life. Lesson 2. Why teach financial literacy? It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. If you're looking to school to make you rich, then you're looking in the wrong place. The education system's primary objective is to train you on how to become a good employee, but it does a poor job of making you a good employer. Things like managing your own personal finances and building wealth aren't taught to you by the education system in its current state. You can only rely on yourself to use this knowledge and acquire assets that allow you to generate an income. The first pillar of financial literacy and escaping the rat race is understanding the difference between an asset and a liability. An asset puts money in my pocket. A liability takes money out of my pocket. Let's quickly look at the income statement. Your income statement is money going into your pocket. Expenses is money going out of your pocket. Things like rent, food, electricity, and clothing go here. An asset is something that allows its owner to generate an income. On the other hand, a liability generates expenditure. This is the cash flow of an asset. This is the cash flow of a liability. Rich people acquire assets. The poor and the middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. Cash flow patterns. Cash flow tells the story of how someone handles money. This is the cash flow of a poor person. They have a job, they get a salary, they use all their salary on expenses, and they usually live from paycheck to paycheck. This is the cash flow of the middle class. They have jobs, they get a salary, but most of their money is tied up in liabilities and expenses. Home loans, car debt, credit card debt, mortgage repayments, and taxes. They think that their home is an asset, but they wake up one day with a liability column full of mortgage debt and credit card debt. This is the cash flow of a rich person. The rich are always thinking of ways to grow their asset columns. Their main source of income is from assets that they have acquired over time. Your home is not an asset. By focusing on a home, you are building a liability rather than an asset. When it comes to houses, most people work all their lives paying for a home they might never own, incurring 30-year loans that they are tied to. You need to pay property tax, and the rates of these taxes are completely out of your control. You need to pay other home expenses, and the value of your home over time does not always go up. And most important of all, the biggest cost of a house are all the lost opportunities. If all your money is tied up in a house and going out through the expense column in mortgage payments, it's not being used to grow your asset column. Furthermore, think of all the other investment experience that you're missing out on when you only focus on local residential real estate. Here are some examples of real assets. An apartment, which generates monthly payments from a tenant, and the repayments allow you to repay the loan repayments on that property. A business that doesn't require you to be present within it.
Your call is very important to us. Please hold.
For poor dad, a home was an asset. For rich dad, a home was a liability. This is how poor dad's income statement looks. Take note of the inflated liabilities. And this is rich dad's income statement. Over time, he has grown his asset column. Most people fall into this trap all the time because they are financially illiterate. They don't understand the relationship and differences between the balance sheet and the income statement. Why people struggle. If you follow what the masses do, this is what your life will become. You have 3 people that you work for. You work for the company to get a salary. You're making the owner and the shareholders rich. If you have debt, then you work for the bank. Your mortgage and credit cards make the bank rich through your interest payments. And finally, you work for the government. The government takes a cut of your money before you have even seen it. And the harder you work, the more you pay in taxes. Take a calendar year. If you're a regular person, every dollar you earn from January 1st to March 16th goes straight to the government. That's 2.5 months of every year that you just give to the government. Compounded over 40 years, that's almost 6 years you work just to pay the tax man. The rich understand this, the masses don't. The main ways to get out of the rat race. Fully understand the difference between an asset and a liability. Focus all your efforts on obtaining assets that generate a cash flow. Keep your expenses and debts to the bare minimum. And finally, which leads us to the next lesson, mind your own business. Key lesson. Life is not about how much money you make. It is about how much money you keep and for how many generations. The key to achieving this resides in having financial literacy. Understand the difference between an asset and a liability. The rich build and acquire assets. The poor and the middle class acquire liabilities that they mistakenly think are assets. Lesson 3. Mind your own business. The rich focus on their asset columns, while everyone else focuses on their income statements. Robert Kiyosaki's first professional job was far from glamorous. He was a photocopier salesman for Xerox. Using the wages he earned, he invested into apartments. And after just 3 years, The revenue he was generating from his investments outpaced his salary. It was then time for him to leave Xerox and look after his business full-time. So what are some real assets you can begin focusing your attention on? 1. Businesses that do not require your presence to operate. 2. Stocks. 3. Bonds. 4. Income-generating real estate. 5. Notes or IOUs. 6. Royalties from intellectual properties like music, scripts, or patents. 7. Anything else that produces an income or appreciates in value. Things like cryptocurrencies, websites, YouTube channels, etc. Once a dollar goes into your asset column, never let it come out again. Feed your asset column. Robert thinks of every dollar he puts into his asset column as an employee. Each dollar in my asset column was a great employee, making more employees to buy the boss a new Porsche. And the best thing about money is, it can work for you 24 hours a day, and it can work for generations. Key lesson. Don't confuse your profession with your business. The middle class focus on their profession, and as a result, they spend their entire lives building someone else's business. The rich, on the other hand, focus on building their own businesses. Your profession focuses only on the income section of your personal income statement. Your business revolves solely around the asset column on your balance sheet. In part 1 of this summary, we looked at cash flow cycles, escaping the rat race, the philosophy of rich dad versus poor dad, and more. In part 2, we will cover the history of taxes, a secret of the rich, obstacles to wealth, plus much more. Lesson 4. The history of taxes and the power of corporations. My rich dad just played the game smart, and he did it through corporations, the biggest secret of the rich. A brief history of taxes. Every time people try to punish the rich don't simply comply, they react. They have the money, power, and intent to change things. They don't just sit there and voluntarily pay more taxes. You may have heard the saying, nothing is certain except death and taxes. But for most of human history, taxes were not a certainty at all, and look much different to the way people are taxed today. Occasionally kings, queens, and presidents would collect taxes in an effort to support wars, but there were no permanent taxes levied against people on their income. Even in times of war, the highest tax rate in the Roman Empire was only around 3%. Originally in England and in the USA, there were no taxes. Only in 1874, income tax became permanent in England. And 39 years later, the US followed suit with the adoption of the 16th Amendment that made income tax permanent. These permanent taxes were passed into law under the guise that they were only to be levied against the rich. This decision would end up backfiring and punishing the people who voted for it, the poor and the middle class. Government bureaucracy versus capitalism. As the government grows, more and more tax dollars are needed to support it. Rich Dad saw Poor Dad as a government bureaucrat and himself as a capitalist. Both are driven by opposite incentive structures. Put yourself in the shoes of a politician or government employee. Your incentive is to spend money and hire people. The larger your department or organization becomes, the more entrenched and respected it becomes. You're incentivized to spend every dollar of the budget you can, because if you don't, you risk losing it in your next budget. If you're a politician running for government, you aren't campaigning on your ability to cut expenses or balance the budget. You are campaigning on all the things that you will build, create, or give to your constituents. And at the end of the day, you aren't spending the money from your own bank account. You're spending the population's tax dollars. Now put yourself in the shoes of Rich Dad, a business owner. Your incentive is to spend less and only hire when needed. And at the end of the day, you may deploy your capital in a more efficient manner because it is your money. My rich dad did not see Robin Hood as a hero. He called Robin Hood a crook. This economic theory of taking from the rich and giving to the poor and middle class only lasted until the government's need for more money to sustain itself led to the taxes needing to be levied on the middle class and the poor. At this point, the rich found a new way to protect their assets. The biggest secret of the rich. The rich found a way to escape and seek the protection of a corporation. For most people, when they hear the word corporation, they may imagine something tangible like a large building with hundreds of employees. In reality, a corporation is just a piece of paper that creates a legal body. The rich protect their wealth through corporations because it gives them tax advantages over the poor and the middle class. Corporate tax rates are lower than personal income rates, and it also protects them from lawsuits. But how? It comes down to the flow of income. Take a close look at the order. An employee earns money, pays taxes, and then spends. A business owner earns money, spends, and then pays taxes. The corporation can do many things that an employee cannot, such as paying expenses before taxes. The business owner's income flows through the corporation and pays him or her a salary as an expense. If you pay yourself a small enough salary, you can also avoid the higher tax brackets that higher earning employees need to pay. The pre-tax dollars here are where the rich find ways to minimize their tax burden as much as possible through deductions and other legal loopholes. Lesson 5. The rich invent money. The mind and your financial operating system. Most people's operating system for creating money is get a good job, work hard, and save your way to financial freedom. The rich don't trade their time for an hourly salary. They find ways to build assets. To build your asset base, you need financial intelligence. The single most powerful asset we have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth. An untrained mind can also create extreme poverty that can crush a family for generations. In today's information age, your greatest asset is your mind. The old ways of making money and getting rich don't work today. Developing financial intelligence is the key to finding and creating profitable business opportunities. To gain financial intelligence, you need to learn the following: financial literacy, the ability to read and understand financial statements. The financial statement of a business can show you its strengths and weaknesses. Investment strategies. Investing is the science of money making money. An understanding of supply and demand. An understanding of the law. Be aware of all state and federal regulations and always play by the rules. Gaining financial intelligence will allow you to see opportunities outside of the get a job, work hard and save model of making money. Always be learning to improve these 4 areas. Timing and courage. Often in the real world, it's not the smart who get ahead, but the bold. Financially intelligent people always have more options for creating wealth because they are constantly seeking and inventing new ways to invest or build their assets. You can't be the one sitting on the sidelines waiting for the perfect timing or perfect idea to arrive. You need to take action. Courage alongside a willingness to take calculated risk can make the difference. Lesson 6. Work to learn, don't work for money. JOB is an acronym for just over broke. Unfortunately, I would say that applies to millions of people. The long view. Are people looking to where they're headed, or just until their next paycheck? If you need to get a job and work for someone, work to learn new skills. Most people only focus on short-term benefits and will take a better paying job that teaches them nothing over a job that will give them the skills to become successful in the long run. When you're first getting started, value learning new skills over money and job security. Specialization versus knowing a little about a lot. Job security meant everything to my educated dad. Learning meant everything to my rich dad. Poor dad wanted Robert to become highly specialized and focus on job security. Rich dad wanted Robert to know a little about a lot. The main skills you need to focus on learning are management of cash flow and how to deploy capital, management of systems, how to plan and allocate your time efficiently, and management of people. Learn how to hire and motivate a team. The main specialty skills Robert recommends are sales, copywriting, and marketing, and the main communication skills are writing, speaking, and negotiating. Most people will tell you it isn't a good idea to jump from one company to another, but in general, most jobs will not expose you to all of these relevant skills. Robert considers working for different companies a wise decision. You will learn more, and from the long view perspective, this will pay dividends. Talent versus financial intelligence. The world is full of talented, poor people. Talent isn't enough to become successful. Many talented people are poor or working at low-paying jobs. This is because they haven't learned the skills to leverage their talent into financial rewards. Lesson 7. Overcoming obstacles. The primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they handle fear. Here are 5 of the reasons people fail to achieve financial success. 1. Fear. They fear losing money more than making it. 2. Cynicism. They are cynical and do not believe it is even possible to become wealthy. 3. Laziness. They are too lazy to change their habits. 4. Bad habits. Their behavior towards money is dictated by their habits. And 5. Arrogance. They're arrogant, ignorant, and ego-driven. Overcoming the fear of losing money. Rich and poor people have fear, but how they deal with fear is different. The rich are able to handle the fear of losing money, whereas the poor become paralyzed by it. Poor people often avoid the topic of fear or money altogether. The poor look at losses as permanent and irreversible. The rich look at losses along the journey as inevitable and only temporary. The key is to take inspiration from your failures along the way, knowing that they're a valuable lesson to learn from and are only temporary setbacks. Overcoming cynicism. Cynics criticize, winners analyze. Cynicism and doubts are what keep most people poor. When you don't even believe it is possible to become rich, and you have self-doubt, you let opportunities slip past you and you prefer to play it safe. Cynics will tell you all the reasons why something won't work, but have never actually tried it themselves. Rich people are always analyzing and thinking about how things can work. Poor people are always criticizing and thinking about why things won't work. Overcoming laziness. Too many people lazily accept the status quo and don't strive for something better. Rather than saying, I can't afford it, try to change your mindset to, how can I afford it? This opens up the brain and forces it to think of solutions. I can't afford it immediately shuts down your ambition. A little greed, but not too much. Too much greed is a bad thing, but Kiyosaki tells us that a little bit of greed will help you overcome this laziness. Overcoming bad habits. To develop good financial habits, start by paying yourself first. The majority of people pay everyone else before paying themselves. It should be the other way around. Pay yourself first when you get paid, then everyone else. If you don't have enough to pay the government or creditors, this will force you to creatively think of ways to make more money to repay them. If you pay yourself last, you won't have this incentive. Overcoming arrogance. Many people use arrogance to hide their own ignorance. Robert found that people who didn't know what they were talking about would often bluff their way through a discussion with arrogance. Try not to be that person. When it comes to investing and wealth creation, always be open to other people's perspectives and never assume that you have all the answers. Lesson 8. Getting started. There is gold everywhere. Most people are not trained to see it. To get started on your journey to financial freedom, try the following 10 steps. 1. Find a purpose. Find a reason greater than yourself to keep you on track and help push through obstacles. 2. Make daily decisions that propel you towards your purpose. Your spending habits reflect who you are. You can choose to be rich, poor, or middle class every day through your daily decisions. Poor people have poor spending habits. Ultimately, your future is the compounding of all the small decisions you make each day. Replace negative thought patterns such as, I'll never be rich, by thinking about one thing you could be learning or doing today that propels you towards your financial goals. 3. Choose your friends carefully. Robert warns us not to listen to poor or frightened people. They will tell you all the reasons why what you're doing won't work, but actually have no skin in the game themselves. Choose which people you want to associate with, as these people will influence the decisions you make and opportunities you find the most. 4. Master what you've learned, then learn something new. You become what you study. This is the financial version of you are what you eat. For the masses, the formula most used is to work for money, wake up, go to work, pay bills, and repeat. In today's fast-paced economy, it is not so much what you know anymore, but how fast you're able to learn new things. There are unlimited ways to make money, but so many believe that they can only become an employee to earn it. 5. Develop self-discipline, pay yourself first. When paying bills becomes more important than paying yourself, your life is being dictated by those obligations. If you pay yourself first, you'll always be building your asset column, and you'll be less likely to take on consumer debt if you know how to pay yourself first. 6. Pay well for good advice. Information is priceless. If you aren't sure how to do something, be willing to pay someone who is already doing that thing. The information that you're paying for will be a tiny fraction of the ROI you will gain in the future. 7. Get something for nothing. Whenever you make an investment, always be focused on at least breaking even as quickly as possible. Once the asset's initial investment has been recovered, any additional income from the asset sitting in your asset column is just an added bonus, and you won't be kept awake at night thinking of market fluctuations. 8. Use your assets, not your capital, to pay for luxuries. Borrowing money is easy in the short term, but hard in the long run. Never go into debt for luxuries. Robert, just like most people, loves luxuries, but he will never go into debt to finance luxurious cars or other such luxury products. Only money generated from assets can be put towards luxury. This allocation of money and impulse control does require discipline. Most people lack this discipline and end up becoming servants to the debt that they took on to pay for luxuries instead of focusing on building assets. 9. Find heroes. We all need heroes to look up to and inspire us on our journeys. Spend some time and effort choosing a few financial heroes you wish to emulate. Read about them, listen to interviews with them, learn about their personalities, and channel their energy into the way that you conduct your own financial journey. 10. Give and you shall receive. If you can't teach something, that means you don't truly understand that thing. The more you teach others what you know, the more you will learn. Always be generous with your knowledge. The more you give, be it knowledge, money, smiles, love, the more you will receive. Make sure this giving truly comes from the joy of giving and helping others, and not because you expect to receive something in return.
Zo, dus als je tot hier bent geraakt, wil dat ook absoluut zeggen dat je de volledige video hebt uitgekeken. En ja, chapeau dan. Ik hoop dat je er iets van opgestoken hebt. Binnenkort nog meer van dit. En ja, samen op weg naar een ander denkpatroon. En samen op weg naar uw financiële vrijheid, mijn financiële vrijheid. Dat is alleszins hetgeen wat ik wil bereiken en dat is hetgeen wat ik wil delen. En hopelijk kan ik hier toch een aantal mensen ook mee helpen om zelf die stap te zetten. Ik zie je in de volgende video.